Imagine this. You wake up in a penthouse bathed in the cold glow of sunrise. The city sprawled beneath you like a dormant beast. Your phone lights up. A cascade of notifications. Messages from friends, work emails, a TikTok video of a laughing stranger doing something trivial. You swipe, tap, scroll. A latte materializes in your hand, ordered via an app. A package arrives, something you don't remember buying. Your life is a mosaic of convenience, yet your chest feels hollow, as if you've swallowed a stone. You wonder, is this it? Now picture another scene. A fisherman in a village without Wi-Fi, mending nets under a blistering sun. His hands are calloused, his face weathered. He hums a folk tune, eyes fixed on the horizon. When he returns home, his children scream with joy. His wife serves rice steaming in a cracked bowl. He laughs, a sound that shakes the walls. You think, how can he seem more alive than me? Herein lies the paradox. The more we drown ourselves in pleasure, binging, buying, swiping, the deeper the void grows. The fisherman, with nothing but a threadbare existence, radiates a quiet fullness. What if the answer isn't in chasing more, but in confronting what we're running from? You've been told life is a pursuit of happiness, but what if that's a lie? What if pleasure isn't the destination, but a detour? A seductive bypass around the jagged, unlit path where meaning waits. Think of the compulsive gambler chasing the next high. The social media addict refreshing for validation. The workaholic numbing guilt with promotions. Each ritual loops endlessly. A snake swallowing its own tail. Why does the chase never end? Consider the addict, not the caricature with a needle, but the polished professional. The fitness-obsessed influencer, the parent who buries grief in their child's trophies. All share a hunger that pleasure cannot sate. Schopenhauer called life a pendulum swinging between boredom and pain. We sprint from the latter, only to crash into the former. What if the void isn't a flaw, but a feature? A space screaming to be filled with something real. You felt it. That ache at 3 a.m. when the noise fades. The gnawing sense that your life is a photocopy of a photocopy. You distract yourself. Another show, another drink, another conquest. But the silence returns, louder. What if the distractions aren't failures but clues? What if they're flares shot into the dark, signaling that you're meant to want more? The ancient Greeks warned of acedia, a spiritual apathy, a paralysis of the soul. Modernity has rebranded it as burnout or depression, pathologizing what may be a primal alarm. Your restlessness isn't a glitch, it's a compass. But what if you lack the courage to follow where it points? Picture the last time you stood at a crossroads. A job offer in a new city, a confession of love, a leap into the unknown. Your pulse quickened. For a moment, you glimpsed a life unshackled from autopilot. Then fear whispered, what if you fail? So you retreated into the familiar. The Netflix queue, the casual fling, the safe job that pays the bills but hollows your bones. How many safer choices have led you here, to this quiet despair? This is the great question. Are you truly alive, or just killing time until you die? The distractions are infinite. The algorithms, the advertisements, the dopamine drips, all conspire to keep you grazing, never feasting. But deep down, you know, a life without hunger is no life at all. So why do we cling to the illusion? Because the alternative, the raw, trembling act of seeking meaning, is terrifying. It demands you confront the abyss, stare into the void, and ask, what matters? Not what society deems important, not what your parents, your peers, your Instagram feed dictate, but you. The fisherman knows. His life isn't easy, but it's his. He doesn't distract himself. He participates. Every net mended, every wave ridden, every story told to his children weaves a tapestry of purpose. You, with all your privileges, have outsourced this labor to apps and algorithms. What would happen if you took back the thread? The answer begins where comfort ends. It starts with a single, searing question. What would you do if you weren't afraid to want something real? You were born into a world that promised freedom but built a cage. Not with bars, but with infinite choices, all shimmering, all hollow. This is the unspoken crisis. Modernity has weaponized pleasure, transforming it from a fleeting reward into a societal mandate. You are told to treat yourself, live your best life, hustle and grind, as if meaning could be microwaved and consumed between meetings. But the more you chase dopamine, the more your soul starves. Why? The answer lies in a silent war between two versions of yourself. The first is the surface self, the persona shaped by algorithms, advertisers, and the tyranny of FOMO. It craves validation, novelty, and frictionless convenience. The second is the subterranean self, buried beneath decades of cultural conditioning. It yearns for struggle, depth, and the raw ache of significance. These selves are at war, and the battleground is your nervous system. Consider Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where citizens drown existential dread in soma and superficial pleasure. Huxley's nightmare wasn't the absence of freedom, but its perverse abundance, a society seduced into complacency. Today, we've built his dystopia without recognizing it. Social media is our soma, consumerism our opiate, endless entertainment our distraction. We've confused liberty with license, mistaking the ability to choose anything for the wisdom to choose what matters. But why does this trap persist? Because pleasure works until it doesn't. The brain's reward system, honed over millennia to drive survival, now sabotages us. Dopamine, the molecule of anticipation, once motivated us to hunt, bond, and explore. Now it's hijacked by apps designed to addict, products engineered to inflame desire. You scroll, click, and consume, chasing a high that vanishes before it arrives. Neurologically, you're running on a treadmill, exhausting yourself to stay in place. Philosophers saw this coming. Nietzsche warned of the last man, a creature obsessed with comfort, who blinks at profound suffering and makes everything small. Schopenhauer, more bleakly, claimed humans oscillate between pain and boredom, using desire as a temporary escape. But both missed the modern twist. We've industrialized this cycle. Capitalism and technology didn't create the void, but perfected its exploitation. Every ad, every viral trend whispers, your emptiness is a product shortage. Buy this, experience that, upgrade yourself, and the hollowness will fade. Yet the hollowness grows. Why? Because the void isn't a bug. It's the human condition. Viktor Frankl, survivor of Nazi concentration camps, wrote that meaning is the primary motivation of humans. Without it, we collapse into existential frustration. But meaning can't be outsourced. It must be forged in the furnace of struggle, responsibility, and self-transcendence. Pleasure, when weaponized as a substitute, becomes a narcotic, a way to mute the call of purpose. Carl Jung took this further. He argued that the psyche rebels when denied its shadow, the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable or too difficult. The more you distract yourself, the louder the shadow screams. That 3 a.m. dread isn't a glitch. It's your unconscious, demanding integration. The fisherman's contentment isn't accidental. His life is a dialogue with reality. Wind, waves, hunger, family. Your life is a monologue of avoidance. Even Sartre, the existentialist who declared, "Hell is other people," might pity our age. He saw humans as condemned to be free, burdened by the weight of choice. But today, we've outsourced choice to algorithms. Swipe right, one-click purchase, autoplay next episode. Freedom has become a burden we delegate to machines, numbing ourselves to the vertigo of autonomy. The hidden problem, then, is this: you've been conditioned to see yourself as a consumer, not a creator, a passive node in a network, not an active force in the world. Your restlessness isn't a personal failure, but a systemic one. A mismatch between your innate need for meaning and a culture that treats depth as a liability. But here's the cruelest twist. The more you distract yourself, the more you reinforce the trap. Neuroplasticity works both ways. Every binge watch, every mindless scroll, etches neural pathways that deepen your dependence on shallow stimuli. You become a stranger to stillness, to the fertile silence where meaning germinates. The longer you evade the void, the less equipped you are to face it. This is why the fisherman's laughter haunts you. It's a mirror. His life, hard, simple, connected, exposes the lie you've been sold. That comfort equals happiness. That convenience is progress. That a life without struggle is a life well lived. But struggle isn't the enemy. It's the forge where identity is hammered into shape. Without it, you remain unformed, a ghost in the machine of modernity. And yet, what if the problem goes deeper still? What if the void isn't just personal, but collective? A symptom of a civilization that's forgotten how to ask why. A culture so obsessed with how to optimize, monetize, commodify, that it's lost the language of meaning. The next section will unravel how this silent epidemic shapes societies, corrupts relationships, and turns humans into hollowed-out vessels, drifting, dissatisfied, desperate for a fix that never comes. You are not alone in your restlessness. Look closer, and you'll see the same hunger gnawing at the foundations of society. The algorithms that numb your mind also polarize nations. The pursuit of likes erodes empathy. The cult of convenience strips communities of their stories. This isn't just your personal crisis. It's a collective unraveling, a silent erosion of the bonds that make us human. Consider the paradox of connection. You have 500 friends, but no one to call at 2 a.m. Dating apps offer endless matches, yet loneliness rates soar. Why? Because shallow interactions hack the brain's reward system, flooding it with microdoses of oxytocin and serotonin, enough to mimic intimacy, never enough to satisfy it. Like a sugar rush mistaken for nourishment, you're left depleted, craving another hit. The result? A world of crowdsourced isolation, where we're all together, but profoundly alone. This isolation fuels a darker cycle. The lonelier you feel, the more you seek refuge in distractions. Shopping, porn, streaming marathons. Each act deepens the void, which capitalism eagerly fills with products promising to complete you. A recent study found that the average American spends 58 minutes a day on Instagram, over 15 days a year, curating a life they barely recognize. Meanwhile, suicide rates climb, antidepressant prescriptions double, and the fabric of shared meaning frays. What happens when a society forgets how to feel? The answer lies in the brain's wiring. Neuroscientists call it hedonic adaptation. The tendency to return to a baseline level of happiness despite positive or negative stimuli. Win the lottery, and within a year, you'll revert to your default mood. The same applies to dopamine-driven pleasures. Each binge, each purchase, delivers diminishing returns, demanding more extreme stimuli to sustain the illusion. This isn't just personal, it's cultural. Consider how entertainment has escalated from sitcoms to reality TV to algorithmic feeds of outrage and absurdity. We're collectively mainlining chaos to feel anything. Philosophers saw this trajectory. Nietzsche warned that a culture of comfort would breed nihilism, a world where the highest values devaluate themselves. Huxley's Soma addicts, trapped in infantilized bliss, couldn't fathom rebellion. Today, we've normalized a softer nihilism, a life of ironic detachment, meme culture, and vibes. We mock sincerity, dismiss grand narratives, and reduce politics to performative outrage. The result? a civilization sleepwalking into meaninglessness, armed with smartphones and sarcasm. Even relationships have become transactional. Swipe right for validation. Ghost when boredom strikes. Replace depth with dopamine. The cultural shift is so complete that concepts like loyalty, sacrifice, or enduring love feel almost quaint. Relics of a slower, less enlightened age. But what's lost when we outsource connection to apps? Studies show that eye contact releases oxytocin. Touch alleviates stress, yet we've replaced human warmth with emojis, reducing intimacy to a tap. What happens to a species that forgets how to hold each other? The consequences bleed into the physical world. The environment crumbles not just because of greed, but because we've lost the capacity to care. Climate change is the ultimate delayed gratification problem, a crisis that demands we sacrifice now for a future we may not live to see. But a culture addicted to instant pleasure cannot compute this calculus. We recycle our guilt into tote bags, virtue signal with hashtags, then return to Amazon Prime. The planet burns, and we scroll. Even rebellion has been commodified. Buy the revolution-themed merchandise. Post the activist infographic. Perform outrage, then disengage. The system co-ops dissent, turning dissent into another product. You can't fight the machine when you're too busy feeding it. This is the unseen cost. A world where everything means less. Art becomes content. Love becomes a transaction. Politics becomes theater. And you, the individual, are left with a life that feels increasingly unreal, a simulation of a simulation. The fisherman's laughter, the parent's bedtime story, the protester's chant. These acts of raw humanity feel alien now, relics of a time when life wasn't filtered through a screen. But here's the most insidious twist. The void isn't passive. It actively shapes you. Every distraction, every avoidance molds your identity. You become what you consume, fragmented, anxious, perpetually dissatisfied. Your attention span shortens. Your capacity for stillness atrophies. You mistake urgency for importance, noise for substance. The world narrows to the glow of a screen, and the part of you that once dreamed in color now flickers in grayscale. Yet, what if this isn't the end? What if the unraveling is a necessary collapse? A chrysalis moment for the species. Nietzsche wrote that man is a rope tied between the animal and the Superman, a bridge over an abyss. The void you feel isn't a grave, but a womb. The next section will reveal how to cross that bridge, to seize the raw materials of your pain and forge them into purpose. But first, you must confront the hardest truth. You are not the victim of this system. You are its collaborator. Every swipe, every purchase, every hour lost to the feed sustains the machine. Breaking free requires more than insight. It demands a revolution. You stand at the edge of a cliff, trembling. Below, the void roars, a churning sea of distractions, empty promises, and borrowed identities. Behind you, the safe path, the familiar glow of screens, the numbing rhythm of consumption, the soft prison of good enough. But the wind carries a whisper. What if you jumped, not to escape, but to dive headfirst into the unknown, where meaning waits like a pearl at the ocean floor? This is the rebellion. It begins with a single defiant act. Refuse to look away. The first step is to stop running. Viktor Frankl wrote that when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But modernity has inverted this wisdom. We change everything around us. Jobs, partners, diets, cities, while leaving our inner world untouched. The rebellion demands the opposite. It requires you to sit in the silence, to let the void speak. What does it say? That you've mistaken comfort for safety, pleasure for purpose, that your restlessness isn't a flaw, but a calling. Here's the radical truth. The void is not your enemy. It's the womb of creation. Nietzsche called it the abyss, warning that if you gaze long into it, the abyss gazes back. But what if the abyss isn't darkness? It's a mirror. A reflection of your unmet potential, your suppressed desires, your latent power. The fisherman doesn't fear the void. He navigates it. His life is a dialogue with uncertainty. Each cast of the net an act of faith. You must learn to fish in your own chaos. The rebellion starts with small, seismic acts of refusal. Delete the apps that steal your attention. Not for discipline, but to reclaim sovereignty over your mind. Every notification is a leash. Every scroll, a surrender. Embrace boredom. Let the silence terrify you. In that terror, you'll meet the parts of yourself you've drowned with noise. Seek friction. Choose the difficult conversation, the uncertain path, the project that scares you. As Nietzsche said, you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. But rebellion isn't just subtraction, it's creation. The antidote to nihilism isn't critique, it's art. Build something that matters, even if only to you. Write the poem, plant the garden, mentor the child. Paint the mural on the abandoned wall. Creation is an act of defiance against meaninglessness. It declares, I am here, and I matter. History's rebels understood this. Mandela found purpose in prison. Frida Kahlo turned pain into art. The Stoics embraced suffering as fuel. Even Sisyphus, cursed to roll his boulder eternally, can choose to love the climb. Camus called this the revolt against the absurd. Not to escape suffering, but to find freedom within it. The rebellion also demands you reject the cult of convenience. Convenience is the opiate of potential. It lulls you into outsourcing your autonomy to apps, to experts, to trends. Reclaim it. Learn to cook a meal from scratch. Fix the broken chair. Walk instead of drive. These acts aren't just productive. They're rituals of reclamation. They remind you that you're alive, not just existing. But here's the deepest rebellion. Fall in love with the process. Modernity worships outcomes. Six-pack abs, viral fame, the dream job. The rebellion worships the grind. The writer who bleeds over drafts. The parent who sacrifices sleep for a child's fever. The activist who protests in the rain. These acts aren't glamorous, but they're sacred. They're proof that meaning isn't found. It's forged. Jung called this individuation. The lifelong process of integrating your shadow, embracing your contradictions, and becoming who you truly are. It's not a destination, but a war, fought daily against the forces that would reduce you to a consumer, a hashtag, a statistic. The rebellion will cost you. You'll lose friends who cling to the old script. You'll face ridicule for rejecting the rat race. There will be days when the void screams louder than your resolve. But remember, the pain isn't evidence you're doing it wrong. It's proof you're alive, and you're not alone. Every era has its rebels, the ones who refused to swallow the soma, the monks who preserved knowledge in the dark ages, the suffragettes who starved for the vote, the punk rockers who screamed against the machine. Their legacy isn't in museums, but in your hands. You inherit their courage. This rebellion isn't a sprint. It's a slow, relentless burn. Start small. Today, do one thing that scares you. Speak a truth you've buried. Forgive a wound. Create something useless but beautiful. Each act is a crack in the prison wall, but the final step is the hardest. Become the hero of your own story. Not the victim, not the spectator, but the protagonist, the one who chooses, acts, and endures. The world will try to write your narrative. Burn the script. But first, ask yourself, are you ready to stop surviving and start living? You've been taught to fear the void, but what if the void is the only place where you're truly free? Picture the fisherman again, not as a symbol of simplicity, but as a master of alchemy. He takes the raw materials of his life, The back-breaking labor, the salt-stung hands, the storms that nearly drown him and transmutes them into meaning. His secret isn't contentment, it's participation. He doesn't ask life to be easy. He asks to be needed. This is the ultimate truth. Meaning is not discovered. It's created. The void isn't empty. It's a canvas. Your pain, your longing, your unanswered questions. They're not obstacles, but the very pigments you've been given to paint your existence. Nietzsche's abyss isn't a threat. It's an invitation. When you stop running from the void, you realize it's been waiting to collaborate with you all along. The rebellion was never about rejecting pleasure. It's about rejecting the lie that pleasure can fill you. The fisherman's laughter, the artist's obsession, the parent's sacrifice. These aren't escapes from suffering. They're acts of defiance, proof that humans are designed to transform suffering into something sacred. Viktor Frankl called this tragic optimism, the ability to say yes to life, even in the face of despair. Here's the paradigm shift. You are not here to be happy. You're here to be real. Happiness is a byproduct of aligning with your purpose, not the purpose itself. The ancients understood this. The Stoics sought not joy, but virtue. The Buddhists taught that attachment to pleasure breeds suffering. Even Camus, the priest of the absurd, urged us to imagine Sisyphus happy. Not because the boulder stops rolling, but because he chooses to love the climb. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Studies show that flow states, those moments of total immersion in a challenge, are the closest humans come to transcendence. But flow requires friction. A surfer needs the wave's violence to feel alive. A writer needs the resistance of the blank page. Your soul, too, craves friction. It's not masochism. It's the recognition that growth lives in the struggle, not the summit. This is why the void haunts you. It's not a flaw, but a feature of consciousness. Humans are the only creatures cursed with the knowledge of their own mortality, blessed with the ability to create meaning from that curse. Your restlessness isn't a disease. It's the proof that you're more than a biological machine. You're a meaning-making animal, built to stare into the abyss and say, "I will make this matter." The final revelation is this: the void is your co-author. Every trauma, every failure, every sleepless night of doubt is a raw material waiting to be shaped. The addict's recovery, the artist's masterpiece, the activist's revolution, all are forged in the furnace of their unresolved pain. Your life's work isn't to find yourself, but to build yourself brick by brick in dialogue with the universe's chaos. But here's the catch: you can't do it alone. Meaning is a collective act. The fisherman's nets are woven by his community. The artist's vision is shaped by her culture. Even the lone rebel standing against the crowd is sustained by the unspoken hope that someone, somewhere, will heed their call. To rebel is to remember that we're threads in a tapestry, a story that outlives us. So what now? You return to the world, but not as a consumer, as a creator. You watch Netflix not to numb yourself, but to dissect its storytelling. You scroll social media not for validation, but to connect, to challenge, to plant seeds. You embrace pleasure not as a substitute for meaning, but as a celebration of it. A dessert earned through the labor of living. The ultimate truth isn't a destination. It's a practice. Every morning, you'll wake up and choose again. Will you distract? Or will you dive? Will you settle for the life they've scripted? Or will you write your own, even if it's messy, even if it's misunderstood? The void remains. It always will, but now you know its secret. It's not a chasm to fear, but a wellspring to draw from. Your fears, your doubts, your unanswerable questions, they're not weights, they're wings. And so you step forward, not as a victim of existence, but as its co-conspirator. The screen fades. The noise quiets. You pick up the thread, the one you once outsourced to algorithms, and begin to weave. The final question isn't what's next. It's what have I been waiting to create? What's the why that gives your life meaning? Share your rebellion against the void in the comments below. Then subscribe, because the journey to reclaim depth in a shallow world has only just begun.